Welcome to the Tell You Later show, conveniently located at the intersection of historical and hysterical.
Sincere thanks to all those who support us on Patreon. See the full list at the end of the show. By the way, there's always room for more.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to their channel.
We haven't got a title song for this show, so we're singing this thing instead.
Okay.
It's really just a substitute. Nonetheless, the melody may stay in your head.
Oh, I hope so.
'Cause it's a tune.
It's a tune.
You'll love to croon.
You'll love to cruise.
But there's one thing you should know. We have to confess we do not possess a title song for this show.
Ain't it peculiar?
Believe it or not, we haven't got a title song for this show.
The Irish,
like they
Star
were
Warsian. What planet do they live on in Star Wars? What are they called?
simulacrums.
Oh, I don't know.
Tatooine.
Anyway, yeah, the Irish Tatooine.
Oh,
Anyway, I'm gonna show you what we actually came up with.
I'm delighted. Oh, only because Will didn't even remember himself.
Hold on. Let me make it. And
Good old outer space,
Good old outer space,
that's the place for me.
ain't found no better yet.
Good old outer space,
Good old outer space,
suits me to a T.
and all the alphabet.
No matter where I roam,
Not Anaheim, but Rome.
on land or air or foam,
Poetry for water.
nowhere else can take the place of good old outer space.
Let's do a second chorus.
Good old outer space,
Good old outer space,
what a perfect spot.
what a location.
Good old outer space,
Good old outer space,
I like that spot a lot.
by acclamation.
No matter where I go,
Not stop or slow, but
to
go.
Butte to Borneo,
And other places.
nowhere else can take the place of good old outer space. It's huge,
Whoa.
that's why I choose it. So huge, I can never lose it.
Naturally.
Good old outer space,
Good old outer space,
that's the place for me.
ain't found no better yet.
Good old outer space,
Good old outer space,
suits me to a T.
and all the alphabet.
No matter where I roam,
Not cuckoo, monk, but wrong.
on land or air or foam,
Poetry for water.
nowhere else can take the place of good old outer space.
Reiteration.
Good old outer space.
Let's
One more
laugh,
time.
lady.
Good old outer space.
Blast off! Me.
And did you have some help from Industrial
Yes.
Light and Magic on that one?
no, let me tell you. Let me pause this here. But so we have you to thank.
Oh, well,
Thank you so much to all you patrons who help us out there. We really appreciate your support. Thank you everybody who's buying merch on Merchulator. Go to my website, katielee.com, and see there's all kinds of cool stuff. And you can see it there or on Merchulator.com. And also those who listen on Anchor, I want to shout out to you guys because I know there's a bazillion of you out there who listen and really appreciate you too.
only because Will had literally written more songs than he himself could remember.
Well-
So he needed different groups of friends to remember different songs.
Well, after that, so you could tell, I mean, we probably rehearsed it 3 times, and then I said, I'm not a singer. The fact that
Oh,
he
no,
would
you-
even want to sing with me was
No.
mind-blowing.
No, I thought you were a perfect singer, and also the little interjections, sort of like
what I'm good
like
at.
a jazzy Bill Bailey, "Won't you please come home," where you just sort of do the. Also, it's funny that it's a song about outer space, but it has a very old-fashioned sort
Right?
of
There's
tempo
all that
and style to it.
anachronistic stuff with
Yeah.
Will consistently. But because you brought it up, he got the lyrics. I don't even know if you gave him the lyrics when you came over. Just reminded
all I
him.
could do was remember the spirit of them. Like
And he dug it up. brought it in, and I said, well, I think we're going to need some aluminum foil. And I gave him the black goggles originally, but they were too small for his head, so he ended up with pink, and we just, we goofed off. Yes, we have actually a fan who does media who illustrated our opening. And so when we recorded that song, we asked him, would you do some animation?
Yes,
for
it
good
was
old outer space?
consistent with your Tell You Later
Yeah,
graphics.
the theme song.
Yeah, that was really fun.
He did that, and I'll have to show you the Tesla song later that we were working on just at the very end. But
All
anyway.
the space age songs.
Oh, well, yes, he was a big fan of Tesla. So I'm going to keep the computer here just in case we have to look something up, like how to spell simulacrum.
Very good. So people watching on their computers will see us looking at a computer.
Possibly.
It's kind of like
that mirror
Parendelian
effect.
House of Mirrors. Yes.
Like
Pirandello, is he a playwright? Is he an artist? Is he a...
Is Goethe a
He worked with mirrors.
philosopher or a poet?
It's what holds buildings up, I thought.
No, Goethe.
I know when I was a kid, I thought it was Goethe.
Goethe.
Yes.
And it could be.
Whatever you want.
Because language.
Now that we acknowledge the multiverse, anything is possible anywhere. So
exactly.
You said, when you talked about Dayenu,
yes,
you said it epitomizes something. Until I was almost out of high school, I thought there were two separate words, epitome and epitome. Because the word looks
different than what it's
But it also sounds right. Like, he is the epitome of good breeding. It just sounded neat and clean. Whereas epitome was a little bit stumbly. And
that's the kind of stuff that Will and I used to talk about, too. Because I think people who like words, like you do, and you're a writer,
yes.
that revelation when all of a sudden you've been reading something all this time and then you hear somebody say it and you make the connection, wait.
Yes.
It's like, what says that? Wait a minute.
Yes.
I want to shout. Right? So it's like, that's how you say that.
Yes, though sometimes someone's saying it wrong.
That could throw you off. Like? Are you trying to think of...
Yes, there's some super simple ones, but they've gone out of my head. But you'll even hear them on, news shows and stuff.
Yeah, often?
Yeah, like that, where it's like, seems like there's respectful disagreement and
and then doesn't that make you crazy when the dictionary that you've lived with all your life and the pronunciations all of a sudden they come up with but also can be that is this and then you realize we're not French.
Yes.
And there's no loyalty to the history of the words, and really our dictionaries just reflect whatever anybody wants to say.
But that's sort of how language is anyway. But
not the French.
I share you. Yes, I know they have an institute. They're always trying to ban words like le swimsuit or le weekend or something like that.
Nope, and I think they guillotine them or something. If they catch you using those, you're dead.
Also, when
you're dead to us.
I'm not a fan of when words start being used as verbs that really shouldn't be. Like, this is going to impact you in your life. When I start gifting you with flowers and candy.
Okay, let me ask you this. I'm going to tell you guys my big pet peeve.
All right.
When did woman become an adjective?
Oh, like a woman boxer?
Yeah. Like a week ago? A year ago?
They just
wasn't
defining
female,
woman is going to be
wasn't
tricky
female
enough.
good enough? Female, isn't that like the adjective?
I
that
always
one
like the
would
IX, like the aviatrix.
Well, but that's taking the actual thing and turning it feminine.
What are some of the others?
But a woman driver. How about a female driver? There's a woman. That's a noun. It's not an adjective. Please stop saying that. Please.
A motorix.
Motorix. I can think of other ones, but we probably shouldn't say. Anyways, but what I wanted to ask you, because then there's something else. When I asked you in the very beginning, did you know... it wasn't Letterman. It was another funny person. Steve Martin.
Oh,
yes.
We worked on a show for half a year together.
Which one is that?
Called the Downer Channel. It was an experiment that did not really work. It wasn't, but it was a great.
Was it a channel or a show?
it was called, the title of the show was The Downer Channel. It was on the NBC network, so it really was a show. And the cast was quite marvelous. It had Jeff Davis, it had Wanda Sykes, very talented. Steve Martin himself did not appear on camera, but he did some voiceover, and it was very funny doing that. The problem was it was designed to drive network executives crazy. All the jokes were supposed to be about bad things happening to people. And we just would constantly get notes like, we understand it's about bad things happening, but is there a way to make the bad things kind of up and kind of good? And you're like, what? Huh? What? I think if we could have done it.
This was prior to Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yes. It was around the year 2000.
Okay.
And,
What's the fangirl up to this week? To find out, stay tuned till after the credits.
And again, a great group, and it seemed like, well, most of my life has been sort of me pinching myself like, is this really real? To spend time with Steve Martin, and who's so generous with his laughter and his sense of humor and appreciation of others. But then he would play banjo, and I'd get to hear him play banjo.
How fun.
And would... got to visit him at his home and see his paintings. I'm sure he doesn't think back and go, "Oh, my old buddy Steve O'Donnell," but he'll remember me as a peer and a colleague in a attempt to do a show that did not quite
fly.
Come. I think he's had much more success with his Only Murders in the Building.
I've been watching that.
Delightful.
I've been watching it. Well, yeah. I mean, it's fun watching him interact with Martin Short.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty fun. The things that they say, just the little one-liners.
Yes,
pretty funny.
Yes, it's a nice combination of sort of zany vaudevillians and New York.
And what's so great about the reason I asked you that, first of all, so I can just connect my thought here, is that when we were talking about scatting, and part of his act was "Come on, everybody!" Right? That was his part of his act. Remember?
Maybe that's where I got it.
When we play the banjo, and go, I'm just, and you just like to be improvised. Come on, everybody, and nobody knew the words.
I do remember when he would have crazy lyrics like "be purple and obtuse and licorice," or something. Very funny. I remember just such. A couple times in your life, you see some perform and you go, "Wow!"
Yeah.
And when I first saw him in the mid-'70s, I thought, "Holy mackerel!" I felt
He's
that way when I saw.
He's his own person.
Yes. Like when I saw Roseanne Barr doing stand-up, I said, this is going to be big. And one almost forgets now as the decades go by.
Well, the thing is,
Key and Peele, when you first saw Key and Peele sketches, I went like, oh my God, these are perfect. These are written and performed perfectly.
I think people who like humor, which I'm going to count myself as one, not being an actual writer myself, but totally appreciating it. When comedians can make comedians laugh, right? Or writer, then they're really special because they're doing something unique that catches you up. As a matter of fact, I'm teaching, I do a little course. It's not really a course. It's like a workshop, a few hours. No, maybe it's only an hour and a half. Maybe I don't do it. No, I do it. But the idea was I wanted to say, find the funny. Find the funny. Figure out what's funny. And we break it down. I do this through the Global Voice Acting Academy, and I'll probably do it elsewhere. But look and see, what makes you laugh? What are the elements? Surprise, catching somebody off guard, right? Something that, doesn't quite register right away. Something you got to try to figure out and think about. How would you define funny? Because you've made a career out of it.
I think you've done it perfectly. Yes, there's the surprise. Nonsense part of it. I'll tell you, I do think there's an example of a perfect joke, and this is where the nieces and nephews have underscored and verified and proven this again.
If they laugh, if kids laugh, it's good.
I won't even have to tell the joke. Everyone knows the joke. It's the interrupting cow, the knock-knock joke.
Yes.
It's a perfect joke because there's an element of just joyous chaos when it pays off. It really is just right. But I would say it's tricky. I have a friend named Joe Toplin who was a Letterman writer. He wrote on the show Monk for a long time.
Oh, that's one of our faves.
And in a rather mad scientist kind of way, he's devising computer programs now that can write jokes. But it's very tricky because
There's
if
so
you
much
just
nuance
say
in a joke.
yes, I think there are multiple nuances. He has gotten the computer to like replace one word with a word that sounds similar, and the result is silly, you know.
Okay.
But it's sort of Norm Crosby-like in a way. But I'm just saying that his
Look up Norm Crosby. Maybe we'll have his picture down below for all you little kidlets out there.
or Mrs. Malaprop from the 18th century. But it underscores the elusive nature of what's funny. It isn't simply replacing a word or surprising or doing the opposite. It's a weird mixture of things. It's the character is involved. I don't know. I think
things that are out of place. Out of place for a situation can be funny.
Yes.
Things that just catch you off guard because we're expecting something, and it's not what we expect.
And your students, as they find the funny, have they come up with what you thought were good rules? I think it's not like electrical engineering.
No, I don't
or
ask
something.
them
It's
rules because
yeah.
really I'll give them a script and say,
Yeah.
okay, let's see. They've got a voiceover script usually
Yeah.
and a character, and just say, okay, how can you? Where's the joke? First of all, because now you're a writer. You've written scripted
Oh,
stuff.
people ask me where the joke is all the time.
Well, right, but I mean, you have it's in there. But a lot of people don't necessarily have the same senses of humor,
yes,
right?
but this is like food or music. I think humor may be the widest range of subjectivity. Like what one person finds funny.
Moo!
Perfect. Callback. Element of surprise.
Have you ever thought of writing a book about humor?
No.
No. Okay. Well, you might want that haiku book. Will's Popcorn Haiku book has some pretty silly stuff in there.
Why, this book?
Yes, this book. I'm not sure where it's available, but someday it may be. And
At haiku bookstores near you?
Popcorn Haiku. Haiku.
Or maybe at a
Popcorn
dojo?
stores.
What would be a temple a Zen temple?
Haiku, I think maybe, or it's, maybe Nuts on Clark will carry it as but his descriptions of people are really what's the funniest.
Yes.
His drawings, because all the art in the book is his. I've mentioned
Very
this before in
silly,
an
his
episode
cartoon style.
with Phil Lawler. So who's this guy?
And like W.C. Fields, he has a wonderful gift for funny. Senior,
What a schnoz.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right, that's a little more cracked magazine. Here's Nasuri Niles Kamelsky, proud owner of the world's largest popcorn pyramid.
There you
See,
go.
I have a theory about Will's drawings, though. I think he does the drawings first and then decides what
Who they are. That's
afterwards.
probably true. Did you ever write for Mad Magazine?
I wrote one thing
Yeah.
for Mad Magazine in their very final stages. Maybe they're still in their final stages. I don't know.
Like an
but it was during the
article or
lockdown.
a
No, it was
cartoon?
a
Oh, recently.
yes, just
Wow.
2 years ago or so. I have appeared in Mad Magazine as a caricature, which was one of the greatest. I talked about pinch meat moments.
Wow. Oh, you've got your new Tell You Later tote bag.
Cute. I love it.
Did you get that at Merchulator?
I sure did. It's so
Merchulator.com.
cute. Look,
Super
tell
cute.
ya later bag, and it's got
Awesome.
everything in it.
Do
I
they
got-
have hats? Us comedy fans really like Mad Magazine.
Truly, I did. Whenever my dad was trying to teach me about the carburetor and the fuel line and the solenoids, I was always going, how soon before I can go back inside?
Look at my Mad Magazine.
Mad Magazine.
Well, I have to tell you, my dear husband, who I adore right now, is not my first, but he's my most special. However, when I first joined forces with my first husband, father of my kids, he used to love to read novels and stuff, and his tons and tons of books right on the shelf. All these. I had about this much space, but they were all comic books. Linda Berry,
Oh, yes.
Matt Groening. Those are my books.
Well, those are high quality. Those are very good.
exactly. Twisted Tales of Shakespeare. Was that Richard Armour? Is that you know that one?
No.
Look at Twisted Tales of Shakespeare.
No, but
Comedy
I'd like-
stuff.
but
and I thought that looks kind of pathetic. This is what I want to read and look at.
I don't find there's that distinct a difference. You could be reading, Pilgrim's Progress, and you might get just as much out of Linda Berry, maybe more, in terms of.
Linda Berry's pretty deep.
Yes, and also just great characters and stories from her life. It's where the storytelling and the writing goes well with the visual.
Well, do you think it has to be much more succinct too than if writing a novel or a play? Like you've got to just hit it.
My mealy-mouthed answer is yes and no, because in some ways, you can accomplish a lot more in a graphic novel or a comic book because the picture tells the story, right?
Exactly.
Worth 1,000 words. But on the other hand, that's also the challenge of reading, Thackeray or whatever. Is they've got to use
Descriptive
just language to make you feel that there's a cool breeze coming in from off the heather or whatever it is. And
So tell us, go back to Mad Magazine. Who drew you?
I think it was George Woodbridge. It looked like Mort Drucker, but I don't think it was Mort Drucker. But it was a sweet little throwaway joke that no readers would appreciate. It was supposed to be a backstage tour of a congressman's office.
Okay.
But they pass a room where his joke writers are writing jokes for him or something. And they pictured 3 Letterman writers.
Oh, that's
Jerry
sweet.
Mulligan, Chris Elliott, and myself. And no one who
Chris
Elliott.
You wrote with Chris Elliott?
For many years.
Holy
yes.
cow, I love that
Yes,
guy.
yes.
Hey, Chris, if you're watching, love you.
Yes,
of course, I'm sure he's a big fan of Tell You Later at this point. This is probably episode 80.
He has a lot of wide-ranging interests.
You never know.
He has 2 wonderful daughters who are really, really funny now and making careers for themselves. Abby, who was on Saturday Night Live for 2 seasons, and Bridie, who has started to be a independent filmmaker and director. But they're just a very, very funny family. 3 generations of funny. Will Ryan would appreciate.
Ray. Was his
Bob
dad.
and Ray. Yes,
Yeah.
Bob and Ray, and then Chris Elliott, and now his daughters. Because you don't necessarily think that it's like genetic, but it can be.
But you get that. Depends on the atmosphere you're raised in.
Yes.
Now you're a big family,
Yes.
and I don't know what your family listened to or did for fun. But my mother, it was Jewish and had a lot of Jewish comedy albums that we would listen to. And I don't want to say they're just Jewish. They're Jewish people who made comedy albums. I don't think Bob Newhart
that
was
would be
Jewish.
virtually every comedy.
Right, maybe. Yeah, it could be. So I grew up listening to Alan Sherman and
Yes.
Tom
Oh,
Lehrer.
oh my gosh.
And so just like some people would have like music library of all this classical stuff, mine was limited to Alvin and the Chipmunks, Alan Sherman.
But you did have classical music because
Well, we
Alan
did.
Sherman used a lot of Hello Mother, Hello
Yeah.
Father. That's what is it? It's Puccini or something.
Yeah, and Victor Borga. We did
Yes.
watch him on TV.
Yes.
All these people, guys, are funny.
I'm trying to remember it. I don't even think this was a famous comic, but there was a funny song from around 1962 called "The Whole World is Jewish Since I Fell in Love with You." Do you know this? It's like Steve McQueen is Jewish. Can you believe it? Such a living doll in a prayer shawl.
That sounds like who's the guy who wrote the Hanukkah song?
Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He has some great songs too, where it's like he's listing all the people that you're surprised. But the premise of this song is that it's a bunch of people who really are not Jewish. Like not to mention that wonderful couple, Harry and Belafonte. The idea is that once you're in love, the whole world seems Jewish because everything's so great.
So do you think there's a certain type of humor that's typically Jewish?
That's tricky too, because you can think of the range. You've got
But
you've got like a Jackie Mason who's an actual rabbi, and then you've got Woody Allen. And these are very distinct styles. I would say it's verbal, it's smart.
Less physical.
You mentioned Adam Sandler, but there's a guy who is physical. He did do physical comedy. He did funny faces and funny voices.
A certain little niche. Like I met a guy the other day, and he made a comment about visiting his mom at the cemetery. She's doing fine, he said. And I thought, I know this guy's Jew. I could just tell by his offhanded comment.
Well,
that was a sort
yes.
of, and you know what? Being Jewish, I think it's okay for me to talk about this because I just think sometimes there's a little kind of humor that is unique.
Yes, I agree. Though it's tricky sometimes.
It's
to
universal.
Verbalize it.
Yeah.
I think it's there's a little bit of absurdity to it. There's a little bit
absurdity. I think that's it. And there's that backhanded kind of thing,
Yes.
like the we say, you probably know. I'm sure you know this joke. The mother-in-law gives the daughter 2 scarves for Christmas.
Yes. Oh,
right?
you didn't like the blue one, right?
Yeah, she puts on one. Oh, this is lovely. What? You don't like the other one?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Right. There's a sort of
Yes. There's an appreciation of neurosis. By the way, you were talking about cartoonists. One that and Harvey Pekar was sort of curmudgeonly. I thought very distinctive in a kind of psychological way when I was a kid was Jules Pfeiffer, and I think that's where I even learned the word neurotic, was because neuroses and neurotic and psychoanalysis and stuff would show up in his strips all the time. And again, there's so many ways you can.
New Yorker magazine
you can laugh
especially had fight. Well,
Yeah.
the Times did too, right? The newspaper or just the New Yorker? Who cares?
Tell you later.
Tell You Later is a Patreon-driven entertainment show. So what are you waiting for? Come on over, join us at patreon.com/Tell You Later.
I didn't wink or nod or nudge too slightly, acquiesce. But still somehow you up and guessed my
Come on, it's Narnia in here. Go in. Look at this. And there's your castle. And here's Aslan.
The great lion.
A lion? Is he?
Is that the best? Can you hear the episode playing overhead? I can. That's so cool. I know. Wait a minute. Can I be Lucy? Would you please be Susan? Because you're beautiful. Oh, thank you, Lucy. Oh, I'm so glad we're here together. Oh, there's Aslan. He's the great lion. Yes, I love him.